Back when I was in shop class in middle school, we made a small little tic-tac-toe board where you would use pegs like golf tees to mark your spots, and they were two different colors. In OnShape, we're going to create that little tic-tac-toe board to learn about two tools: linear pattern, which is right here, and mirror, which is right here. We will use both tools during this project. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the top plane, look directly down at the top, zoom out some because we're going to draw a fairly big shape, and start with our sketch. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch and pick my center point rectangle, put my center on the origin, and pull out a very large square. The next thing I'm going to do to make sure it knows it's a square is I'm going to click all four sides individually, and I'm going to tell them to be equal. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my dimension tool, I'm going to grab one side, and I'm going to make it 200 millimeters, fully defined square. Now I could extrude this and then fillet the corners afterwards as a three-dimensional fillet, but this time I'm going to show you sketch fillet. We're going to click all four corners. I've already practiced this, so my radius might come up different than yours, which is fine. And when I click off, I want to set this with a radius of 20. Now, for whatever reason, it then knocks a bunch of my stuff as underdefined. So I'm going to get out of this fillet tool. I'm going to click the fillet, and I'm going to click all four of the fillets and tell them to be equal as well. Oh, for whatever reason, it wants me to redo the lines. I'll do that again. I guess when I fillet these, it loses its equal relationship, so I just put it back in. So I have to put it in on the lines. And this is my base sketch. I'm going to close it, go 3D, extrude, pick sketch 1. It's new, it's a solid, and 25 millimeters is perfectly actually what I want. So I wanted 25 millimeters, and coming straight up is just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and label this as the base. Perfect. I'm going to go back to the top view, click this surface, and start a sketch. Now again, it's really important that I pick the top surface of my base. What we would do after we have our piece cut out and had our corners rounded, we would actually use a tool called a router, and we would cut 4 grooves in there to make the tic-tac-toe board, basically. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to still use my center rectangle, and what I'm going to start out doing is I am going to go from the center, the origin, straight out to the side. Sorry, I don't have my tool active. So from here, straight out to the side, click, and come somewhere up here. Here are the dimensions I'm going to use. I'm going to go from the origin to the edge, and this will be 25. I will do the entire length, which will be 160. And then I will do the thickness of my groove, which is 5 millimeters. Right like that. And I am going to go ahead and accept it. And I'm going to extrude, remove. The face that I want is sketch 2. The depth is 5 millimeters. And I am going to call this the groove, as in my vertical groove. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw the horizontal groove and then do all the mirroring. So I'm going to still click this surface. I'm going to start sketch, and I'm going to repeat the steps, but in the other direction. So I'm going to go from the origin with my center rectangle straight up, click out and draw my rectangle. The measurements are basically the same. So from the origin to the lower edge is 25. The whole length is 160. And the width of the groove is 5. Fully defined. Accept it. I am going to do extrude, remove. This time it's sketch 3. The depth is 5. And this is my H groove, or horizontal groove. Now what I'm going to do is go to my 3D view. Now what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the mirror tool. This is where I can mirror a whole feature, and I have to use a plane, okay, or a surface. In this case, I started everything from the origin, so I kept the front and the right plane in the center of my part, and I did that on purpose so that I could use those to mirror these grooves. So when I click mirror, the first thing I have to do, which is kind of annoying, is it wants to mirror an entire part. And I don't know why. If we're using good design practices, we never do more than one part in a part studio. So to me, I think the default should be a feature mirror, but unfortunately we always have to change it. So we change it to feature mirror. Now the feature I want to mirror is my vertical groove. So I'm going to click V groove. The mirror plane, because my vertical groove goes this way, that I'm going to want to use is the right plane. And I should basically see a preview of it over there. And I'm going to accept it. Next, I'm going to take my H groove and click mirror and change it to a feature mirror. And I have to pick my H groove again. Oh, I'm sorry, I picked mirror 1, H groove. And my mirror plane is the front plane. So now, once I do both of those mirrors and I look at the top, I have this perfectly drawn tic-tac-toe board where I basically have 50 millimeter squares in all of these, and then about a 20 millimeter border all the way around. This is the first startup of my tic-tac-toe board. Okay, I should have probably named these mirrors. Okay, so if you'd like to label them V mirror and H mirror, that probably would make sense. I'm going to just leave them as 1 and 2 so that we can move on and hopefully keep this tutorial short. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the hole. So like I said, it would use a peg, kind of like a golf tee. So I would have like 6 blue golf tees and 6 red golf tees, and you could play against somebody. Obviously, that's more than you need. But you could play against somebody putting your tees in, and that marked your spot, trying to create 3 in a row. So we needed a hole to put those golf tees in, and we drill those holes about 20 millimeters deep. So I'm going to again look at the top view, and looking kind of in this top corner one, I'm going to go ahead and draw this one first, because that's how it makes it real easy to use the tool I'm going to show you. So I'm going to click sketch. I'm going to grab a circle. I'm going to center the circle in my 50 by 50 square by going from the center to this edge at 25, center to this edge also at 25, and then we're going to make a 10 millimeter hole, fully defined. I'm going to use that. I'm going to extrude, remove, 20 millimeters deep. I'm going to go to 3D view and double check that it's going down 20 millimeters, which is exactly what I need it to do, and I'm going to accept it. Now I've done a lot of sketching and extruding and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to do anymore, which you might think is kind of weird. It's like, Mr. Kenny, you got 8 holes to create. All right, I'm going to use a cool tool called linear pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and start the linear pattern tool. It's the one that looks like a little stack of blocks. I have to change it from a part pattern to a feature pattern. The feature that I want is this extrude one, which I should have as a hole. Now the next thing it asks me for is a direction. What I need is a horizontal line. So I'm going to pick this edge right here. Works just fine. Any horizontal line would work. Okay. Depending on which way it starts to go, you may need to flip this direction. Okay. It goes red this way because it's kind of overlapping something. But then what we have is we have the spacing distance. Okay. And what I want is basically from the center of this one to the center of this one, it to be about 50 millimeters. Now, when I say that, I actually have to add something, because I also have to think about the width of the groove. So it's going to be 25 to get to the edge of the groove, as you can see here. 30 to get to the other side, and another 25 to get to the middle. Altogether, that is 55. So it is 55 millimeters. So I can run it center to center, and it's giving me a preview. Now, the thing is, I don't want just 2 copies. I want 3 copies. And you can see that appears. Now, I know we're using this for something relatively simple where it's just 3 across and it'll end up being 3 down. But if you had to do something where you needed a series of 20 holes that were all the same size and equally spaced, I just put the number 20 in there and it would make them all. So this is a really good tool. It's a great time-saving tool. Now, the pattern of going just in a straight line is nice, but I can also go in a second direction. So in my second direction, I'm going to pick a vertical line. I'm going to set the spacing again, because again, I have to go 25 to get to the edge, 30 to get across, and another 25, which gives me a total of 55 to get to the center of the next box. So 55 millimeters. I don't want 1 instance, or the number of times it occurs. I want 3. And that gives me all the holes. Okay? So this, editing this, is the hole pattern. Okay? With extrude 1, since I didn't name that, being the hole. So now I've created my entire tic-tac-toe board. So like I said, you'd make this, use your little golf tees to play the game. Now, in order to finish the project, we also need to do some of the stuff that we've done for a while. We're going to rename the part tic-tac-toe board. And I am going to apply or assign the material. Oh, that's right. If you type in oak, you're going to find one that's called oak, red. That's the one we're going to want to use, is red oak. Don't use white oak. Make sure you use red oak. You can, if you want to, try to edit the appearance, but unfortunately, in some other softwares, there would actually be a wood type pattern. And this one, the best you can do is kind of like a tan or something like that, which, as we know, doesn't matter. I especially don't like the planes in my way kind of here, so I'm going to go ahead and hide the planes and the origin so that I don't see any of that. I'm going to kind of use my control key and move that over, select my board, select mask properties, so that this is showing that I know that you made everything the right size. So here's your screenshot to turn in this tutorial, which is your tic-tac-toe board.